Freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
But I want to get the language right.
The big government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
It is May the 4th, 2017. My name is S.M. Gibson, and you are listening to Anti-Media Radio here on UCY.TV. Of course, the big news around the country today is the Obamacare being passed in the House of Representatives. Should I say Obamacare repeal? And it will now go to the Senate. I don't really care to get too much into that tonight. If you want to hear about it, it's all most people are talking about. It's just more big government. Maybe it's slightly less big government than Obamacare, but at the end of the day, they're still spending $500 billion when we're already completely broke. There is a lot more going on in the world that needs to be discussed. Before we get into that, I'm going to bring on our co-host for the evening, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, what is up?
What's going on, Mr. Gibson? How are things in the world?
Oh, same old same, I guess. Before we even get going on the show, I want to bring something up. I don't know if people heard this today, but Donald Trump, and first off, Shannon, I don't know for everybody that's been listening to this show for the past couple of years, this used to be a much bigger topic on this show. And I think with the election, we got kind of wrapped up into the internal domestic U.S. politics here, and we didn't talk about this topic quite as frequently as we once did. But today it was announced that Donald Trump is going on an international tour. And the very first country that he has chosen to visit internationally as President of the United States, Saudi Arabia. I mean, wow.
Well, I mean, again, when you want to go like on a tour to all your friends' houses all over the world, you want to go to your best friend's house first, right?
Well, that's apparently what it looks like. And of course, the spin given is that obviously, Trump has had some PR fiascos with the Muslim community and Saudi Arabia. I think the connection there are the holy cities in Saudi Arabia, Mecca, of course, being the most prominent. And Trump saying, look, we don't have any problems here, but there is a huge problem. I don't care if it has to do with Muslim or space aliens or whatever. It could care less about whatever. Saudi Arabia. Absolutely. I mean, my mind.
I got to ask, is the first topic of conversation between the Saudi government and Donald Trump the $10 million that they dumped into her campaign through the Clinton Foundation.
What does he care? What does he care about that? They've already been over here for a visit once already, so they're already they're on friendly terms.
The EFF.
I watched a documentary this evening that I highly urge everyone to write this down, type this down, put it in your phone. It is called Saudi Arabia Uncovered. It is on Netflix if you have access to Netflix. Please go watch this documentary and then tell me that this is the first country that the President of the United States should be visiting. And I don't want to hear any of this, well, Donald Trump. Yeah, whatever, Donald Trump, because Barack Obama sold him hundreds of 115 billion, was it, Shannon, worth of weapons. I mean, this is something that is continual. This is something that never changes. I think the reason this is so audacious of Trump is that he even whispered early on, way back in the primaries, their connections with 9/11. Like, he even kind of acknowledged that, and now that's all out the window. I mean, at least to Obama's defense, he never walked down that path. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he steered clear of that subject entirely.
Right. But Trump, he didn't go completely down the rabbit hole, of course, but he certainly referenced it. And
he referenced it to a point, and I remember because we were watching the debate that night together before the show. I believe we had a show that night, I think. And yeah, it was like, oh my God, I just can't believe he just said that. I can't believe we finally got somebody to say that. With the television cameras firmly on him at that point. That's when he was really his campaign had really picked up steam, and his numbers started to rise. His huge numbers. He said something about it. Not only you and myself, but quite a few people, liberty-minded people that we know, suddenly got excited for half a second. Oh wow, I can't believe you just said that. Maybe there's hope for this after all. Maybe this campaign that he's running, where he's actually going to get in office, and we're going to see some real change. Nope, didn't happen.
No, and
EFF forever.
And I guess it's really kind of sad when you think about it, because I think we here on the show we're so disillusioned that when you do hear somebody like Trump say that in the election, and you don't hear politicians say anything like that. And it didn't really become this, wow, yeah, this is the guy. It became like, okay, that's really interesting. That's
okay. Well, yeah. Now we can, we've got something in the debate that we've actually heard that we can work with. That didn't come from Rand Paul,
Right. It seemed very interesting, but at the same time, it was just more of, yeah, I don't trust you either. And unfortunately, the negativity is what breeds accurate predictions when you're discussing politics. That's just the way of the world, and it's that way on all sides. But I want to say it again, Saudi Arabia Uncovered. Please, 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 everybody go watch this documentary. And even what's even more fascinating, Shannon, is I don't know if you've ever seen the documentary, the Propaganda Game. It's about North Korea. And also there is a Canadian travel program, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you before, called Departures, where they go to North Korea as well. They're fairly similar. The documentary, the propaganda documentary, goes way more in depth to the geopolitical stuff and is a much better watch as far as that. But the point being is that they do allow cameras to some degree in North Korea, even though it's very controlled. You are allowed in there. You can film certain things. And Saudi Arabia, you can't film anything. You're not allowed in there to do that. It's just a completely different atmosphere. And you hear about how North Korea is this and North Korea is that, and the human rights are atrocious, which they talk about this in the propaganda documentary, and just how horrible they are. And then you turn around and see the Saudi Arabia, and they're 20 times worse than what North Korea is doing. And they're allies. No big deal, no harm, no foul. They've got all the oil, and they've got all the money.
You know, I'd referenced all of the money that they dumped into the Clinton campaign and also through the Clinton Foundation. And, you know, remember when Hillary was doing all that loud talk about being, you know, for the women and championing women's rights?
You don't want to watch this documentary. If you believe anything, like, you'll laugh at her for being human rights by watching this thing. The way they treat women over there, but seeing it on video, which there's so many videos that aren't, like, don't get out of there. But you see stuff that you don't typically see in this documentary. You'll be like, what? She took how much from them? And she's supposedly women's rights? Give me a break.
And so, you know, we have the narrative that has come out of, you know, amongst all of the Middle Eastern countries that we're currently in conflicts with about their, you know, their civil rights records, their rights towards women's, their rights toward free speech and journalism and things like that. And all of these other countries that we're currently at war with I mean, you know, there's a few of them I would say probably don't even come as close to the crippling oppression that comes down from the hand of the Saudi government to the people in their country.
I don't think there's any question of that. And this is what people need to remember. And this is, you know, the whole dichotomy of just, you know, the Republican Democrats, black, white, good, bad, whatever. Everybody gets in these things where one thing's all this and one thing's all that. Guess what? Multiple countries in the Middle East can be bad. Nobody's suggesting, well, just because this is bad means this must be good. Sorry, that's not the way the world works. And unfortunately, too many people's headspace is still stuck in that. Well, you said they're the worst, so you think Assad's good, or all this garbage, you know, that people want to talk about. The truth of it is Saudi Arabia is absolutely the worst of the worst in the Middle East. They are exactly what is described when you hear the neocons and you hear the politicians ramp up war and you hear about the human rights abuses and you hear how people are treated. It's Saudi Arabia. It's the Wahhabists. When you hear about ISIS, guess what? That's Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't know. People just are completely brainwashed and asleep at the wheel. If you can watch this is like everybody has to see this documentary. And the reason being is because you're going to watch this and you're going to go, wait. When you see it, because, you know, we read the stories, Shane, and you hear the numbers and what. Last year, they executed 154 people, majority of them beheadings. The whole 9/11 stuff, the list goes on and on and on and on and on. But when you see a woman laying in the streets screaming, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, I didn't do it, whack, head got chopped off. When you see a woman just trying to buy groceries, and just some man just boots her Hulk Hogan style, and everybody's just like, whatever. She's a woman. We can do that. It's just like, this is really happening in the world. This is really happening. And not only is it happening, it's happening from the country that Donald Trump's going to go visit first. It's happening from the country that Barack Obama said, here's billions of dollars of weapons because, you're pretty responsible with stuff. I mean, it's insane. That's not even to mention what they're doing in Yemen. And that's, you know, is a conversation unto itself. We have activists over in this country that are imprisoned. It blows my mind that any politician here gets away with supporting them and taking money from them. But everybody's, you know, Hillary Clinton.
But at the same time, that Russia is the one that's influencing our politics here in America. Yeah.
It's definitely.
Okay, gotcha. Just want to make sure I'm on the same page with you.
Yeah, that's it. It's not the country that was clearly involved in 9/11, and everybody's just like, yeah, but whatever.
Yeah, you're talking about Iraq or Afghanistan, right? One of those countries.
Exactly.
No, it wasn't them.
It
wasn't them.
But the great news is that not only are they ahead of the UN Human Rights Council, they have newly been appointed to the Women's Rights Council. The women's rights. I promise, like, if there's another country...
Now, wait a minute. Their appointment just for observation, so the rest of the world can teach them how to, like, actually treat women?
No, they're the ones. They're the ones overseeing this, because if there's a country on the planet that has a worse human rights record with women, I'd like to see it. Seriously, I'd like to see it. Maybe there is, and I'm not saying there's not, but I would like to see the country that has a worse human rights records towards women than Saudi Arabia. They can't even drive. There's an activist in this documentary. She filmed herself and puts it on the internet. She filmed herself, like, driving down the interstate. She got clearly a bunch of trouble for doing that. And there's resistance. And this is why, you get into the whole... Because I'll say this, when it comes to governments and you hear the propaganda of what you heard with Iraq, or you hear with Syria, or whatever country it is, we've got to go blow this country apart. If any country meets the criteria of blowing it apart, it's Saudi Arabia. But this is why blowing a country apart doesn't work, because the majority of these people in this country don't want that oppressive regime. No, they're clearly... parts do. But I think most of the people that live in Saudi Arabia want to be away from it, and they're terrified for their lives. They're scared to death, because when anybody steps out of bounds, they're gone. They're either going to prison for the rest of their life, they're getting beheaded, or they're getting, caned. They showed a square. They're undercover, but that's how they're getting away with showing a lot of this, Shannon. And there's this square. It's called Chop Chop Square. And they have it's a huge square, similar to like what you see in Europe and like Venice, right? Yeah. But they have these grates all over it. And it's where the blood drains into the grates from them killing people in this square. And there's you can see just the guy walking around. There's blood around it. It's barbaric. Barbaric.
And again, this is what the picture that you're painting is the same picture that's recited from what they've heard on TV from a lot of your, the hardcore conservative people that put Trump into office to begin with. What really has fascinated me, particularly through this election cycle, and a lot of the things that we've seen on social media, and people really kind of getting very brazen about showing their true colors. One of the things that has just struck me as just fascinating is that how similar the hardcore conservatives who are so angry and pissed off at these Muslim blah blah this that and the other, yet they exhibit the same exact behavior that they're condemning the quote unquote Muslims for.
It's similar. It's not. It's definitely similar.
I'm talking about the way that women are talked to online, and again,
it's nothing. It's not the same level. I get it. I get what you're saying. It's very conservative.
It's not the same level, but they really wish that things could return to the back when America was great again.
I don't think anybody wants what this is. This is pretty. You may find some backwoods hillbillies, but for the most, this is crazy. When you're beheading people just in these squares, and then there's a kid, now you probably would get people in this country, unfortunately, believe this. There's a kid reading from his school book, and they're like, what's in your school book? And it's just kill all the Christians. Just straight up kill all the Christians. The Jews are this, the Jews are that. And how closely aligned they are with ISIS. Whatever. No big deal. Let's just go visit them, hang out, high five. That's what we do.
Yeah, nothing to see here.
But the good news is we are serving Saudi Arabia's foreign policy interest in the region. Not only are we supplying them with all the military equipment any psychopathic nation could need, but we're helping it along by toppling their enemies and implementing regime change in countries that they have problems with. So there's that too. On top of the fact we're broke and we're sitting here arguing about health care in this country today, which again, we're broke. For whatever they want to pass, it needs to be something that spends zero money because we're broke. But if we just stop tomorrow funding all these wars, funding all this aggression, funding all this stuff, maybe there would be a little bit of money to have the healthcare conversation. But, everybody's more interested in, what does Saudi Arabia need us to do today? Oh, they don't like Yemen. Let's take care of that. I mean, it's just asinine. It's insane.
I remember when the argument used to be that, we were wasting our money on whether sunfish got drunk or, wasting our money on certain, arts programs and this, that, and the other. I really wish we could go back to that conversation, because those little small, piddly little programs are just a mere fraction of the money that we're sending over to our good friend Saudi Arabia. And again, that's just the money that we know about, that's on the books, that's being reported about in headlines. There's a black budget that is being dipped into for all sorts of nefarious things over in the Middle East that Saudi Arabia definitely has their fingers all in.
Forget a black budget. Just what we're spending on the regular budget is outrageous.
Absolutely.
Outrageous. And you got to remember, we're in all these different countries over there. Every single day, what's going to happen with Syria? We've got troops all over. First off, we got troops all over the world. All over the world, over 100 countries. But the Middle East is clearly where things are ramping up the most. You're certainly seeing the whole North Korea Pacific stuff. I don't think, again, for the millionth time, China or Russia really wants to see that change, because I think both of them will ultimately keep North Korea in line. The reason being, if North Korea falls, well, that means that the entire Korea region, North Korea becomes South Korea, and that all moves up to the border of where? That moves up to the border of China. Then you basically have U.S. troops not stationed across from North Korea. You have U.S. troops stationed across from China. And I don't think China wants that. And then that certainly moves them again a little bit closer to Russia. Russia certainly doesn't want that. So people got to let China deal with their own backyard. It's a tough situation. I mean, it is what it is over there. It doesn't mean it's great, but you can't police the world, unfortunately.
Well, and again, that's exactly right. Why do we need to be involved in other countries' affairs? I don't understand that. And the only reason I say that is because you look at other countries around the world and they're not involved in other countries' affairs. Now, you have some countries that are, having little, land disputes or whatever with other neighboring countries. See Israel and Palestine, for instance.
Well,
but,
yeah.
But where else? I mean, and even Putin himself has pointed this out. I mean, what other country has military installations all over the world?
Well,
all over the world.
To the degree we do, it's just us.
I mean, we occupy over 100 countries now. Is that correct?
Yeah, in one way, shape, or form, we do. But another thing that's interesting, and you have to, we talk about this quite a bit, and it's something we haven't brought out as much lately either. But, I always say that, the United Kingdom, if you're not speaking domestically, but you're speaking internationally, we're the same country. Let's not kid ourselves. We run things internally a little bit different. But when you're talking the big scheme of who's going to go get bombed or who we're going to fund or who we're going to do this or do that with, and the United Kingdom and the United States are pretty much always on the exact same page. And how the United Kingdom trains a lot, because they're really bad at funding Saudi Arabia, but they train their police officers. And Yeah, you should see how they behave in this, because they've had a few uprisings in Saudi Arabia. They squashed that quick. It's not like I get Ferguson and all that. No, it ain't that. This is straight up bullets. Ironically, today is the anniversary of Kent State, but it even makes Kent State look pretty tame. But yeah, it's straight up bullets, and oh yeah, y'all are gonna get out of line. Well, you're not anymore. So, and that's what they're being. Are they being trained to do that by British officers? I don't know. They're being trained there, and they're going back and implementing that type of behavior. So,
to great effect.
Yeah, I mean, when you get all the money in the world, I guess you can do what you want on any level. But I want to go ahead and bring on now our other co-host for the evening, Miss Josie Wells. Josie, what is up?
Hello, gentlemen. I apologize. I thought it was an hour ago. I lost track of time.
No worries. All right, I want to real quick pick your brain about a story that you have been covering a little bit this week. A trial kind of going on in your neck of the woods up in the Northeast. You've talked to me a little bit about it off air, but kind of give everybody the rundown of what the trial is and what's going on.
Okay, are you talking about the drug war, the NAPO trial?
Yes.
The Philly 22? Okay. Well, a couple of weeks ago, now there is a core group of medical marijuana activists in Philadelphia, and who started working with it started out, they were working against the system. We were holding down what was called smoke down prohibition rallies once a month, where we would go out and practice mass civil disobedience and all light up and smoke. At first it didn't really get much attention. The cops just kind of left everyone alone. Then the more people that gathered, it got a huge amount of attention, and people started getting arrested, tossed around, beat up, and thrown into jail. Nikki Allen Poe happens to be one of the main activists who have been really fighting this, as well as Michael Whiter. He's a veteran, and he works to get medical marijuana decriminalized in Philadelphia. In any case, a couple weeks ago, we call him NAPO. He was holding what's called a smoke easy. So this was a party. It's similar to like the speakeasies that they used to have when alcohol was illegal during alcohol prohibition. So basically, a bunch of medical marijuana vendors came together in a warehouse and held an event where people who are in need of marijuana to treat their illnesses could come and meet other people, exchange, whether they did trades or whatever it was. There was about 175 attendees, and it was raided by SWAT, over 100 SWAT members. They arrested 22 people. They told a lot of people there that they weren't there for anyone buying anything. They were only there for the organizers, and they had been undercover, undercover following Poe and the organizers around for months ahead of time. And a lot of the undercover agents actually outed themselves that night. So the pretrial hearing was Monday, and the list of charges is insane.
Is it state or federal charges?
They're federal charges, and one of them is causing catastrophe. They're really focusing on the fact that the warehouse that they were in was as quote unquote unsafe, but they did have, they had private security there. They keep harping on the fact that a couple people had weapons, had guns. I know for a fact that I think they recovered 5 weapons, and I know personally, a couple of those people are licensed to have those weapons. So they made it seem like they were in there with these weapons and running around, just like Of course, they're making it seem as unsafe as possible when in reality it wasn't. So I went to the pretrial hearing on Monday, but this is a bit of a catastrophe. So I was removed from the courthouse before I could even get in, because you know how if you go into a courthouse and if you have any kind of, weapons or anything, you hand them over before you go in. Usually you'll check them in a box or whatever. They'll zip them up in a bag and you pick them up on your way out. That's the way it's been in every courthouse I've ever entered. But when we tried to do that there, they said, "Oh, just go through. Wait till you get to the detectors, and they'll take care of it." I was told this twice, and then when we got through, they told me that they were going to have to take me in on weapons charges because they told me I had a brass knuckles knife. That I couldn't have my tripod, which was all folded up in little. It was a very weird situation. So I thought I was going to be arrested. And for the first time, I didn't really fight back because I wasn't there to create a ruckus. I was literally just there to cover that and get as much information as possible and get out. But it didn't work out that way. So basically all that happened is this was just a pretrial hearing. So it was for all 22 people who were arrested. The main thing was that Poe and Rachel is Poe's girlfriend. They do a lot of the organizing for a lot of other events. But what's happening, basically Poe's lawyer has said that he is the face, not the brains of this. So I think they're saying someone else may have organized this event. I was not involved in it. I haven't been involved with the events in a little while, so I'm not sure who organized it. No one has claimed that they organized it, but it was advertised on Instagram, and it wasn't exactly hidden. But we still don't know. But the pretrial hearing is just nothing. Basically, the bail was reduced, so he was able to go home that day. So him and Rachel are home. And they were I think they're the two main people that they're really trying to railroad. So as far as it is right now, it's a good sign that Poe's out of jail and that, that they're home. And he does have one of the best lawyers, one of the most prominent lawyers in Philadelphia.
Now, what about the other 20 people? Did they all get to go home?
I still haven't heard from most of them. From what we heard, see, we were told we were removed from the courthouse, and so I don't know what happened the rest of the day. And so I don't. From what I hear, yes, they got to go. Everyone else got to go home. I think a lot of people were actually released even before that day. I know of a good bunch of people who were released before then, but had to come back for a hearing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So where do they go from now then? Now that everybody's kind of out and they're waiting around, they had their pre-trial hearing, I suppose. So
yeah.
Where do they stand now?
Well, now it has to go to, I guess it depends on how everyone else is going to proceed. Is it, if it's up to each individual how they're going to plead. And that's right now, I think the main focus, I'm mostly focused on kind of following Poe's and Rachel's journey in this, because that's who they're going to make an example of. I don't think they're really going to push too hard with the rest of the people at all. No one's even really talking. Everyone else really wants to remain. It seems that everyone else in their families, they want to remain very quiet about this. They're not pushing again. They're not pushing too hard. Some of the, like Chris Goldstein, who is a Philly, he used to be a Philly normal activist. He was telling everyone, not to protest, not to be, not to really resist anything. So, and that's because other family members requested not to make a big deal of it. So, as far as I personally am not going to be speaking on anyone other than Poe's involvement in this, just due to their requests.
Well, I got to throw this out there though. This whole case has now become pretty much about a bunch of safety code violations. Is that kind of where it's standing, or is it something more? Are the charges more nefarious than that?
There are some more nefarious than that. I could pull them up. They're on my phone, but I'm on my phone now. I have a list of the charges. But it was just, it may come down to that, depending on how depending on how the prosecutors how bad they want to look, you know, as far as if they're going to really be like the prohibitionist, you know, old-fashioned, you know, Jeff Sessions type, who are going to demonize something that is going to be legal soon in every state anyway, or
now we're talking about because the marijuana they had obviously was laced with a bunch of chemicals and other drugs and stuff like that, right?
And no, it actually wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Yeah, it was a plant made out of the earth that God grew himself. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that this could be a really big case for decriminalization in Philadelphia, but it depends on how they proceed with it, because what's happening is I think that, you know, the activism, the cannabis, the, you know, medical marijuana legalization movement in Philadelphia has veered more away from, you know, strong civil disobedience and decriminalizing it to asking for legalization, asking for it to be taxed, asking to, you know, they're still trying to work with the police, still trying to work with legislators. So I don't know if this is really going to go the way that's going to help a lot of people, because I don't if you look at a lot of the laws, even in Jersey, and where it is some medical marijuana is kind of legal, it's still very difficult for patients to get it. It's highly taxed. It's in no way for the benefit of the people.
Well, what is?
Yeah.
You know, that's
but at the same time, though, they created a very unsafe environment in that building, and I'm grateful that they were all able to get out of there alive and those guns were confiscated.
Right?
Yeah, it is definitely open season on activists in this new administration. That is for sure.
Yeah.
There's also another story that's been brewing. I sent y'all a little tidbit about it, but a friend of the show, actually, he has been on the show before. He is one of the co-founders of Seeds of Liberty, the podcast. They also have a pretty active, online presence. One of their co-founders, Jeremy Hegler, and I'm probably saying his last name wrong. I always do. Jeremy he lives in New York, and on one particular afternoon, he happened to look outside. I think he had some errands that he had to run. He runs a pet sitting business that also, you know, takes care of animals, and is also a family man. He's got some kids. Jeremy looked outside and saw a funeral procession that was going on for a firefighter there in his neighborhood. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you full disclosure right now. I don't agree with Jeremy's original posting. I think it was, you know, definitely not something that I would have said in the same situation. But Jeremy basically put up a quick little Facebook post that basically said that, you know, he could see this procession going on down the streets, something about the statists, and referred to, you know, the people that work for government and their armed agents and so on and so forth as fucking parasites.
Right.
That Facebook post suddenly found its way to a lot of different people. The last time I checked, as of last night, it's up to 6,000 comments, or 16,000 comments.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of that thread, he was given death threats. He had like a deputy district attorney from somewhere up in the area had entered the thread. And suddenly, when the thread had reached like 2,000 or 3,000 comments, a news reporter shows up on his door unannounced, knocking on the door. Apparently, he either wasn't at the front door or he had yelled something through the front door, whatever. He was out by his garage area. The reporter comes up into his yard and sticks a microphone and a camera in front of his face. He tells her several times, "I have no comment. I need you off my property. Have no comment." Now, bear in mind the news footage, because this wound up becoming a news story. I'm getting to the good part. The news footage basically shows a very quick interaction of her asking for a comment and Jeremy pulling a knife out, basically telling her very sternly to get off his property. Jeremy didn't lunge at her. Jeremy didn't. All he did was pull the knife out, showed that he means business, and I need you off my property. Mr. Gibson can attest. We live in Alabama, and such behavior will get you shot, and they'll basically just kind of remove your dead carcass from the property. That's kind of the way we do things down here. I guess in New York they do things a little differently, because the news reporter then, making sure that they got all of the footage, walked to the edge of the driveway, called the police, and had him arrested for menacing. Here's where the story gets really nuts. Doing a little digging when I first heard about this, I saw that same exact news crew, which is Long Island Channel 12, I can't remember which network affiliate they are. The very same day, they showed footage of another news story just across town that had a completely different case altogether, where they had set up a camera outside of a fellow's house who was in some relation to a woman that was charged with animal cruelty or animal abuse. I can't remember which. And the guy comes out. Now, this guy actually came out outside of his yard onto a public street, threatened him with the dog and was pushing him, and, was clearly very physical with the news crew. Jeremy never touched anybody. Jeremy was in his own yard on his property, had repeatedly asked the lady to leave, had repeatedly said no comment. Then he pulled a knife that just happened to be sitting at his side. He was working and, kind of working around in the garage and puttering around. I walk around my house with a knife on my side, not because I want to threaten anybody, but because, I'm a busy guy. I do stuff, I'm a handy guy. So Jeremy now, he wound up getting arrested for menacing, the same exact charge as the other fellow. My point is that it is very, I can't think, and maybe y'all can, clarify, I can't think of a news crew that has ever had to call the police on anybody unless somebody tried to rob their camera or somebody tried to threaten them. And that happens from time to time. But the same exact news station does this 2 times in the same day.
Right.
Well, this is what jumped at me when you first told me about this, and this was even before you found the second story. Just hearing about Jeremy's story without commenting on the context of the Facebook post or the animal abuse or any of that. I mean, you've got a news crew that shows up at someone's house because of a Facebook post. As salacious as it may have been, a news crew showing up at someone's house unannounced because of a Facebook post.
Yes. That was the core of this news story. It wasn't that Jeremy had gone out and had a news conference or had a confrontation or went and picketed down at the funeral or anything like that. He just made a quick, snarky Facebook post. So many people do.
Yeah.
So basically the news crew, it sounds like, was drumming up news because it was a slow news day, and they were drumming up their own news.
They were
absolutely, and then they were amplifying it by creating a situation. I'm not going to say
becoming victims.
Yeah, and again, I don't know the timeline as far as which story came first. Maybe it happened at one story, and they realized, hey, we can do this. We can do this with every news story, and it's even better news because we got somebody being hauled away in a police car. I mean, we've got footage of them trying to attack our news crew. Come on, man. That's ratings. That's news, right?
And they definitely saw Jeremy as an easy target because he was already demonized in the public eye to them.
And absolutely. And not only that, I also, part of me wants to think that there was somebody that commented on that thread that happened to be associated with somebody at that news station. Hey, why don't you, because my feelings got hurt on Facebook over some words, go check this guy out, because this is what he's saying about our fallen heroes. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room right now. Jeremy probably shouldn't have said what he said. I mean, firefighters have a tough gig regardless of where they get their paycheck from, regardless of how we feel about taxation, which is theft. But at the same time, Jeremy's entitled to say whatever the hell he wants to on his Facebook.
Yeah, we were, and it's funny that you mentioned this after talking about the Poe story, because while we were trying to get out of the city, we were actually, Jeremy happens to be a friend of one of my friends who I was with that day, and we were talking about
Hey,
that.
full disclosure, I've had numerous conversations online and in chats with Jeremy. Jeremy has been on the show before as a co-host.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing, is that we, and I said the same, thing, because to me, like, I think, to me, I don't really count firemen I don't count firefighters with the rest of the, the parasites, but, so I don't agree, I don't agree with what he said, but what's happening to him is obscene. It's just not, it's completely unexcusable.
Now, having said all of this, we all do have the right to say what we want to, but there is also backlash from saying certain things. I mean,
right.
let's all be adults about this here.
Right.
Nothing that we say is going to be above scrutiny unless it's, something that's either universally true or something that appeals to everybody that we're telling to.
I mean with the news, yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. Jeremy is very active, is very active in the anarchist movement, and is, and when I say active, I mean he does a lot of posting online. He does podcasts. He does all sorts of events and festivals and things like that.
Yeah, he's on that show with he's on that, what is it, Lawbert show?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah. Oh, Jeremy's a solid dude, really is. And again, given in context and what he was trying to say in his Facebook post, okay, yeah, I get it. It wasn't in the greatest taste, and it certainly didn't have the best subject. But at the same time, it's definitely not worth a news crew showing up to your door over a Facebook post.
No.
Some words.
No, they seem like a cross between, that news station in particular seems like a cross between ambulance chasing lawyers and paparazzi. Like, they just seem like scum.
I mean, really, they've definitely got, solid ethics over at Channel 12, Long Island. God bless them.
Oh, God, it's a shame.
Well, I mean, when you're talking mainstream media, at least they're a little bit more on the forefront of what they are, as opposed to all these others that it's just like, we would never do that. At least they're telling people we'll do whatever we have to do for ratings.
Yeah, we are a whore for the money.
That's
Channel
it.
12 News. Yeah, I mean, and again, I mean, there's fake news, and then there's like, yeah, it may be fake news, but watch this, we'll make it real news.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they did.
It's TMZ.
I mean, it's almost ingenious if you think about it, but at the same time, real people's lives are being affected here.
Oh my gosh, you remember that? I don't know if you guys watched the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh yeah, we were watching it last night.
There is an episode where they go out and they actually try to create their own news, and it's one of the funniest episodes, and that's just all I can think of now, and I'm probably going to end up watching that later.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, that's a good one. Do you do Kodi? Do you have the Kodi on the Fire Stick?
No, I have a Chromecast, so I don't have like cable, but I can plan.
I don't have cable either. Y'all need to get on that Kodi. Oh man, y'all need to get on that Kodi. That's the real deal, right?
I'm thinking of getting the Amazon Fire Stick though, and getting that jailbroken.
Well, and it's easy to do. You don't have to pay anybody to do it. Just hit me up.
Okay.
Get my DMs, girl.
So because you weren't on here at the beginning of the show, I won't go back down the whole long 25-minute story, but Josie, go watch Saudi Arabia Uncovered. It's on Netflix.
Oh, good. Okay.
ASAP.
I will watch that.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially because I'm writing that Trump story, so maybe that'll help me.
It will. Oh, yeah.
There is one story that Josie that's up on the site right now that I actually kind of piqued my interest, and that's the story you wrote about Miss Hillary Clinton, who is now finally joining our ranks and is a hardcore activist.
Oh my gosh! How about how she couldn't even say activist? She's an activist citizen now. Like she can't even. She's such a robot. Like she just malfunctioned and like couldn't even get the word
citizen,
right.
Activist citizen. Yeah.
Oh, I was laughing so hard. I was like, all right, I'm gonna write this right now.
I love that. Yeah, I'm so glad to see her in our ranks. It's going to be cool. So she's not taking any money from Saudi Arabia anymore. In fact, she has the same opinion that we do. She's back for all for women's rights now, right?
I couldn't believe it. I was listening to because I listened to the whole interview because the one it was a little
Oh, bless your heart. I'm sorry to hear that.
Well, I wanted to, and I'm glad that I did because there were a couple things I caught that weren't actually in the original clip, and it was how she's going on about she has this conspiracy theory, and I just briefly mentioned it in the article, but she's like, no, go.
Oh, whoa. Hillary Clinton has a conspiracy theory? I can't wait for this.
She has bunches of them. Have you heard anything about Russia in the news in the past?
She's an activist now. Yeah.
That's what she said. She's like, if you go along the timeline of, my opponent, the statements by my opponent and the leader who shall not be named, they all coincide. She's like, and think about this. Within an hour of that, within an hour of that Access Hollywood tape being released, the theft of John Podesta's emails hit WikiLeaks. And she doesn't say anything about the content, but it was just, and so.
I mean, if I was her, I wouldn't either.
Yeah, I'd steer so far clear from that. Yeah.
Obviously, but then, people from her camp freak out and they're like, don't ever say her emails. I'm like, but she's saying her emails. She's literally pointing to her emails. So I don't know what the whole,
she should have pulled them up. She should have pulled them up and did a whole PowerPoint on it.
Oh my
gosh. That would have been awesome.
That interview was hysterical. It was just so funny. She's like, oh yeah, I'm all about women's rights. I'm like, oh really? Is that true?
Oh, just wait till you see this documentary. You're going to become violently ill.
Oh, I hate that.
Oh yeah, that's what I love. I love TV that makes me violently ill. Yeah.
When you see the amount of money, and the amount of money that she took from them, and they even want to suggest she's for women's rights. Oh man, you're gonna break stuff.
And that's on Netflix now. Did that just come out?
It's been out, I guess. It's been on there probably since the beginning of the month, I think.
Oh, okay, I haven't checked it. I haven't checked Netflix in a while.
But, it is the 3rd, so the beginning of the month is now.
Oh yeah.
Just throwing that out there. Sorry.
Here's a story I wanted to hit on real quick. It is currently on antiwar.com. U.S. boost Libya presence with a base in the country south. This is just coming out today, and it's been discovered that the United States has established a military base in the southernmost parts of Libya. When we found this out because of a FOIA request, this is significant because the base's existence was never announced to the public, and AFRICOM documents still do not reveal the exact status and size of the base. It is officially a non-permanent base, which appears to be how they have managed to keep it secret. So,
y'all remember that black budget that I'd referred to earlier in the show? Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, that's just fantastic. And how many military bases like this do we have? And why, what is the need to have a United States military base in the southernmost part of Libya? Well, of course, we all know the actual answer to that. But what would their answer be? I mean, would they have one?
Research, scientific research, I'm sure.
To help them.
Yeah, freedom. Yeah, freedom. We're just here just to make sure that they're free. I mean, they were already free when we found them, but they're freer now.
They're just freedom offices.
Research, scientific research.
That's we don't have military bases all around the world. We have freedom offices.
Yeah. My gosh.
I'm calling Trump. I'm getting on the team now. I'm gonna be like, look, that's branded all as freedom offices. Selling out. Getting to robot.
I love Nick's post. I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. He was like, "Can people please stop criticizing Trump for golfing? Let's keep him on that golf course."
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm saying. I mean, really, everybody's freaking out about him going on vacation. Let him take the rest of it. Exactly. The rest of the 3.5 years. Go ahead, man.
I remember because I said something similar when Obama went on. Because they did the same thing with Obama. I'm like, who cares? That's fantastic. The more he is on that golf course. He's not signing weird executive orders. He's not, he may be like making, I don't know. I'm sure they do some work out there, but it's got to be significantly less than when they're traveling to Saudi Arabia or in the Oval Office.
Can you imagine Obama's stress level when he left that office? Oh, man, I bet it went through the floor.
Oh, speaking of which, did you hear that he endorsed a candidate in this Sunday's French presidential election? Of course, it was not Marine Le Pen. It was Macron. But the fact that he endorsed somebody. Doesn't matter who. Like, okay.
And it doesn't really matter who. I mean, he can endorse anybody he wants to. I'm more interested in seeing what his
Wait. You have to remember, didn't we just get done with this whole election talking about intervening and influencing people's presidential elections? Like, wasn't there a big sticking point?
No. We're doing it to theirs. We can influence elections. We just can't have our elections influenced. But, by anybody other than Saudi Arabia.
I mean, does nobody see the irony in that he's endorsing somebody in something that he has nothing to do with? Is he not influencing that election?
That's where I was going with what I was saying earlier. I'm more interested in hearing his college football predictions this year. That's it.
You should write that story in the morning, Josie, about how Barack Obama is trying to influence the presidential election in France.
Right. Well, see, I could do that, but I think I think it would be a little bit of a stretch, just because it is funny.
No, it's not. I know. I mean, I think we pretty much just about half written the story for you right here.
I think so. It's already done.
Checks in the mail.
And real quick, I wanted to, before we just got a couple minutes here, just because I thought this was hilarious. I know you've heard me, Shannon, multiple times rant about Louise Minch, who I've said I believe is mentally ill.
She is.
So I don't know if this can 100% be confirmed. There's this screenshot going around Twitter. Somebody tweeting a DM to Julian Assange, and it says, Julian, in response to the allegations from Louise Minch on your Russian hosting. The response that's given by Julian Assange in the screen cap, if it's genuine, I cannot confirm, but it's so funny that I have to repeat it. That person is clinically ill and goes around claiming that Putin murdered Breitbart to install Bannon. It's obvious garbage, like everything she says. So anybody that calls Louise Minch mentally ill or clinically ill in this case, I just think it's kind of humorous, and I would just like to pass that along with as many people as I possibly can, because she's a crazy person.
Her Twitter timeline is hysterical. It's really it's pure comedy.
I had to unfollow it because it was just made my head want to explode. Like, I followed it for so long to laugh, and like it's just so outrageous. It's like I can't take this anymore. So
she doesn't even understand what she keeps talking about a botnet. And she doesn't even know what it is, and that's what cracks me up about it. She just comes up with theories and makes it up. But people are listening to her, and they're like, "Yeah, we're so glad you're on this, and you're not giving up, and you're really dedicated to exposing this truth."
Well, the only scary part is the New York Times is like running her op-eds as their fact.
Well, yeah. Well, there are actually a lot of prominent. A couple prominent people on Twitter who should definitely know better, who are like retweeting and endorsing what she's saying. Like, oh dear God.
Well, it's not. I would be shocked that she's this stupid and she's not there to mess with people and spread disinfo. Like, there's no way she's as dumb as she comes across.
She is a joke. Like, she is just an actual joke.
She is. And you know what? Speaking of jokes, that's it for us tonight. For Shannon, for Josie, I am SM Gibson, Anti-Media Radio. Jake is next on UCY. Out. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.